and a very warm welcome to Tata Communications presents ET Studios, The Curious Case of Cloud in association with ETCIO, where we dive deep into the world of digital transformation and cybersecurity, two pillars that are redefining the business landscape as we know it. I'm Himanshi Tiwari, and today we are bringing together a stellar panel of leaders who are at the forefront of this revolution. Now think about this, in an age where your morning coffee order is as personalized as your online shopping cart, how do companies ensure that the backbone of these seamless experiences, our data, remains secure and efficient? Now to answer that, we have with us Sudesh Sharma, Head of IT at Panasonic India, who is steering one of the world's most iconic brands through the waves of digital change, and Rajesh Avasthi, Vice President and Business Head at Tata Communications, a pioneer in connecting the dots between technology and global business. So let's jump in and explore how these industry titans are navigating the complex yet fascinating journey of digital transformation and cybersecurity. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Same here. Thank you.
All right, before getting into the technicalities, I would like to know your personal reflections when it comes to cloud technology. Like, what was that moment when you both realized, wow, this is the game changer? Maybe we'll start with you.
Sure. So for me, when we migrated our Office 365 Outlook from the on-prem to the cloud, that's where we realized that the power of the cloud. Because earlier, I used to get a lot of complaint from end user in terms of slowness, in terms of onboarding the user, backup and all this thing. That was a big hassle for us. As soon as we migrated on a cloud, all these problems were gone away. That was not any more IT problems, and I could use the same resources to do something much better than monitoring server and all this thing. So for me, that was like, the eye-opener, why cloud is a lot of possibility, and that's the journey started.
All right, what was your cloud epiphany?
My starting point was on the other side of the table because I come from the provider side of the business, and that's where I was selling IT equipments to providers who wanted to utilize it or people who wanted to use systems to put in their application workloads. So this was in early 2000s is when people started talking about cloud, and we said, okay, this is a good concept, but I think it was in 2010 when I got an opportunity to work with NetApp, where they hired me to work with cloud service providers to see that our technology gets embedded in their services when it is delivered to people like him who would consume it as a service. So that was around 2010 when I got it.
All right, almost a decade.
Yeah.
Cloud has been there for decades now, right? But it is a hot topic right now. Yeah. But I want to know it from you, why is this a hot topic now, and like what's driving this urgency among the businesses?
I think people have been using a lot of IT services when they were building cloud within their own premises. This was something which was grown over a period of time. But when AWS started in mid of 2000s, when they said, okay, it can be delivered as a service and it would give you benefits of scalability, flexibility, which would also help you go faster in the market, also is where it started resonating with business. So businesses started demanding the IT teams that we would want that kind of flexibility. We would want that kind of scalability, that we don't have to worry whether you have enough capacity to roll out a new option that we want to go in the market with. I think that's where it started resonating with business, and IT also started looking at it as an enabler for business rather than being a support function within the organization. I think that was the change which happened during that time.
All right, thank you for that insight. But, I want to know from you from an industry perspective, from Panasonic perspective, there are a lot of underutilized resources when it comes to cloud environment, right? So how do you identify those underutilized resources, and, how do you kind of make those underutilized resources more efficient and kind of optimize them for better use?
So for each organization who has started the cloud journey, it's a journey. Right, and so as you start this, there are KPIs. You keep in mind when you're starting that, okay, this is the milestone you need to achieve. So there are financial KPIs that, okay, in terms of the cost saving. There are security KPIs in terms of how secure you want to make sure that. Second is how you're using those resources in terms of virtual machine, in terms of the storage and other things, because cloud provides you the agility. At the same time, if you don't use properly, it can be expensive proposition altogether. So that is the clarity the IT team needs to drive, because at the end of the day, it's a completely technical solution in terms of how you use the resources and the KPI regular monitoring, and every hyperscaler, you name it, they provide the tools where which you can monitor those KPIs altogether, and you then target what is your KPI, whether security, agility, storage, those things, and accordingly you can plan.
I'll come to KPI in some time, but you also spoke about managing costs, right? So I want to know from both of you, how do you strike balance, or how can one strike balance between managing costs and managing high performance, the efficiency that we are talking about? Maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah. I think cloud inherently gives you that flexibility, both from scale as well as from a performance or the utilization that you want. I think going back to your earlier question on what is important, I believe a cliche is that what you can measure, you can manage it well. Yeah. So one of the most important things, even from a financial operations perspective, is you start looking at the utilization, whether it is getting utilized 100%, whether it is getting utilized maybe at 30% or so. So if you are measuring it well, or you have tools and ways to measure it well, you will be able to kind of manage it well, and that's where people start looking at the financial operations becoming viable.
What do you want to say, Sudesh, in terms of industry perspective?
Industry perspective, so what I like the tool, it can forecast the cost. Yeah. So you don't need to wait end of the month to get an invoice and then you will have surprise. So based on the resources you are using and how you're using, it can tell you exactly what is going to be by end of month bill. With respect to performance, so it has auto scaling capabilities. I think most of the hyperscaler provide that, which means that you don't need to commit right now. Based on the demand, it can automate increase the resources. So you can maintain the performance, the same experience, while not paying so much money.
All right. Yeah, that's a wonderful point. But, this brings me to another question that I would ask from you, Rajesh. Yeah. What tools do you recommend to companies like Panasonic and others in the industry when it comes to automating those cloud tasks and, bringing in more efficiency and optimization?
I think automation is an inherent part of any cloud. Yeah. Where it is becoming important for people or organizations to look at different tools is because most of the organizations would have a multi-cloud environment. Yes, they would have a primary cloud partner with whom they would want to work with, but they would have certain workloads which may be working on some other cloud environments also. So how do you bring that parity across those environments is very important. So from our perspective, when we work with our end customers, we suggest that you need to look at basically 4 major areas. One we say is that when you are deploying your workload on the cloud environment, you should deploy it on a well-architected framework, which is as per the best practices defined by each of those cloud providers. But giving that framework is something which we enable. The second area is cloud operations, because you are able to monitor how the utilization is, what is the kind of uptimes that you are wanting, what is the kind of performance that you are getting for the various workloads that you have. So cloud operations become very important. The third area, obviously, which he spoke about, is how do you manage the cost, because one of the hindsight of the cloud is it is available in abundance. So you do not want that it should be utilized in that sense, or like I have enough, I can utilize it. So you need to monitor it, and based on your historical data, also predict what would be because no CFO gives you infinite budget.
Absolutely. And there's always a tussle between CIOs and CFOs because of this particular reason,
that's correct. So that's where you need to kind of manage the financial operations. And lately what we have also seen is security compliance is also becoming an important function. And when you have multi-cloud environment, it becomes difficult because you need very different skill set maybe on one hyperscaler versus going on the other cloud, it may be a very different. So how do you normalize that? How do you define policies across those environments? How do you monitor those compliances to those policies that you have deployed? And in case there is something which is not as per the policy that you have defined, how quickly you can remediate is something what you need to look at. So, 4 areas: well architected framework, cloud ops, FinOps and SecOps. I think that's what keeps the cloud in control.
Yeah, absolutely. You said that we have too much, right? So we need to focus our energies at the right place, right? This is the problem with AI also perhaps at this time. But I'll come to you, Sudesh. You know, how, if you can give me some real life example, you know, how automating such cloud tasks like backups, you know, have helped you in any of your things.
Yeah,
at
absolutely.
Panasonic.
Backup, you know, DR recovery, all this simulation, because that, as per the Panasonic security guidelines, you know, or the business continuity plan, we need to simulate those, right?
Yeah.
How to take the backup, DR recovery, all this thing. So earlier, I mean, it was a manual task, right? And now on a cloud, it's everything is automated altogether. So we can do quickly, you know, the backup and disaster recovery, we can do quickly with this, using the different tools available. It depends on the which cloud you are, on a GCP or Amazon or any other cloud.
All right. You know, this brings me to security angle. The security is a top concern for companies right now, right? So when it comes to cloud optimization, how do you kind of maintain that sort of security that it doesn't reach to any unauthorized hands? And when you're optimizing your stuff, then, you know, it is done properly and no security concerns arise perhaps. We'll start with you because you have been giving suggestions of a lot of tools.
So, maybe first I'll add to the point which I was talking about on the automation side. I think where people understand the benefits of cloud is the automation, because that's the real differentiation vis-a-vis what you were doing within your own data centers. And I'll give you an example of an e-commerce company with whom we worked. Whenever they had to launch any new offer to their customers, normally the software development team and the infrastructure teams used to take almost month to roll out any new services. They would first do it on development system, they would do a quality check, and then they will put it on the production environment. I think what cloud has brought in is automation in that entire pipeline.
A lot of efficiency.
So it is called as CI/CD pipeline, which is continuous innovation, continuous delivery, or continuous integration, continuous delivery. So for this customers of ours, we did that automation. The benefit which they got was that whenever they had to launch a new offer, they could do it within days. So what they could do earlier in months, they could do now within days. So faster time to market is something which is what they derived from the cloud. Coming to the main point on the security side, as I highlighted, one of the things which is very important is giving a role-based access. And one of the key things that we state to our customers is that security is always a shared responsibility. So you can't say that you have taken services from a platform provider. That will make sure that it is taken care of. Security is all about people. It is all about processes that you have. And technology is an enabler. It's not an end all basically to get you the secure environment. So you need to make sure that people get role-based access. That means if you are having a defined role, you should get access to that environment only. So having that right control is very important. Second is on the processes side. How do you make sure that you have SOPs defined, which are also automated when you are deploying a SOC or a security operations center, where you automate some of the remediation processes that you may have. So how do you take care of that is something which is very important, and tool obviously is important because you have to keep up with the pace of the new threats that you are coming across.
And they are coming almost every day. We have just seen, like, employees were very happy.
That's correct.
2 weeks ago when there was a shutdown of a software. But on that note, Sudesh, same question. Perhaps, you know, how do you ensure that such cloud optimization doesn't compromise data security?
So that is very important aspect. While we, you know, make sure that we meet the target in terms of the timeline, security is the primary, you know, the goal. Okay, make sure that, you know, nothing can be accessed outside, which is, you know, it's supposed to, like a zero trust policy. So it involves the process, as said, process involvement, as well as there are tools available which you can deploy on a cloud and make sure that regular monitoring is happening. Even though you have given the access, rule-based access, but you will always find a people, some smart people or innovative people, they will always find a way, to hack the system or to access it. So there are tools available which smartly alert or raise the alert altogether. So we are using some of the tools as well to make sure that no unauthorized access is happening here.
Yeah, like he said, it's a shared responsibility. On that note, I would come to you, what mistakes should businesses avoid while optimizing their cloud environments?
I think what is important here is to have a regular checkups done. And that's where a lot of organizations do vulnerability assessments on a regular basis. They do deep penetration tests which are associated with those vulnerabilities. I think those are important steps which need to be taken by organizations on a periodic basis. We've seen in BFSI segment, people talk about those being done on quarterly basis. In other segments, we've seen half yearly or yearly penetration test and vulnerability assessments being done by those. That is to check by a third party whether whatever controls that you have put in are actually in place and working the way they should be working on. And I think one of the things which most of the companies which they do is they have a red team, blue team functionality. That means one team which will say, okay, I'm protecting the environment. The other team will come and say, okay, I will try and hack your systems and see if this is something which is not up to the mark, and that's what is something which is taken care of by most of the organizations.
All right. You were talking about measurability earlier, You were talking about KPIs. So I would come to you from the industry perspective. Like, how do you measure these cloud optimization efforts, and why is it in the first place essential to measure these efforts? Like, are there any KPIs or any focus areas that we need our focus on?
So there are multiple perspectives. So one is the financial perspective. So in terms of the cost of the cloud, that is one thing. Second comes with the experience with respect to system performance. So, it's in cloud. So definitely it's a far away. And the system performance, the usage of cloud, that is another aspect. Third point which we see, architecture of the application. How quickly or how frequently we are reviewing our application with respect to technology side. Because when a lot of organizations start the cloud journey, they don't consider the application re-architecture altogether. So whatever the application has been developed on a data center perspective, the same application, because a lot of companies deploy on a cloud. And then end up paying more than what they expected, And that's where those KPIs are part of all the measurement altogether, that okay, the application should be re-architecture altogether. That is what we do in the Panasonic as well.
All right, at ET we love real life examples. So if you both can share some real life scenarios where, cloud optimization might have helped you in kind of increasing the efficiency or performance of the businesses. I'll start with you. You might have a lot of case studies, I'm sure.
See, from a financial perspective, it is a combination of multiple things. So for one of our customers, we did what we call as a FinOps assessment. Which is looking at what is the present utilization of the infrastructure that they have, what is the kind of agreements which they have with the cloud providers. Now, a lot of time people use pay-per-use options, but those are most expensive. Yes, those should be utilized when you have a new workload coming in, because you do not know what is the stable state in that. But over a period of time, it makes sense to move those pay-per-use instances into a reserved instances. What we call reserved instances is basically that you are committing for a period of time that yes, I will remain with you, give me better discounts on that. That helps you bringing down your costs. So most of the cloud providers, they give those options that if you commit for a year, you would get some discounts. If you commit for 3 years, you'll get better discounts.
Better discounts, yeah.
So that
discounts
helps you
is
reduce
all we
your
need
cost.
At the end of
now,
the day.
this is something which is required for workloads which are stable workloads. But in today's time when everyone is going digital, there are areas where you do not have that flexibility. And I'll take an example of BFSI segment. Mobile banking, you do not know how many people are going to come, or internet banking, how many people are going to come to your system today. Maybe on 31st, people may come much more. Maybe some other day, they may come more on that. So how do you take care of that fluctuation which may be there? I think those are areas where people continue to go with pay-per use model. But there are a lot of systems which are very stable systems. ERP systems in manufacturing world are systems which are very predictable. Every year they would know how much of enhancement they need to do from a infrastructure perspective, and that's where they will put in those controls, and that's the benefit that they will
All
get.
right. You know, we started with the name of the show, The Curious Case of Cloud, and I'm actually curious to know from Panasonic perspective. Now, you know, how, if you can give any real life example or real life scenario at Panasonic, you know, on how cloud optimization might have helped you to achieve those performance numbers or optimization.
So I can give you example like Panasonic launched recently our AC Smart AC with the IoT and Mirai app. So I'm not sure if you heard it. So as we're selling the ACs, so every time the new AC, we are onboarding the new user. So as you said, like we don't know how many ACs we will sell it in the next month, but we need to make sure that each and every consumer who buys this product has a seamless experience. So that's where the cloud comes. So I don't need to fix, you know, the commit initially in terms of my infrastructure resources. As and when the user onboarded, it auto scale altogether, which helps me to maintain my infrastructure cost and giving the same kind of experience to my consumer using the cloud technology. So that is the real-time example I can quote.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful. No, you know, we started from talking about your personal cloud epiphanies. We talked about mistakes. You told us about mistakes. We talked about how cloud optimization is helping you to better your performances and in efficiency. But now, as we're wrapping up this conversation, I would like to know from you the future trends. We all love a little prediction, right? So if you can tell us the future trends in this space, like what do you foresee in the upcoming 5 or 10 years?
I think an area, any organization, if they're not talking AI today, they'll be considered laggards in that space.
Yeah.
I believe from a cloud perspective also, people are going to use cloud more for generative AIs. And there also people talk about two different areas. One is when they will create a use case, they would want to do the training of their data set on a specific model before it is used for a use case.
Yeah.
And the requirements there could be very high also and could be very costly. GPUs are very costly.
Yeah.
And whether you have a utilization for long term, you are not 100% sure. So that's where people would utilize AI cloud for model training, fine tuning, and also to begin with, probably for inferencing. Inferencing is like in OpenAI chatbots that you have seen, you write a natural language and you get an output out of that. How many concurrent people are going to come in, you are not sure about that initially. So you may want to deploy those on cloud environment and get the benefit out of the cloud from a generative AI perspective. That is one area. I think predictive outcomes is something which will be enabled by these generative AI use cases, which could enable businesses either from a cost operations perspective or also giving them an edge in an area where they want to get in. So I believe that is an area which is going to become very interesting in times to come.
Yeah, Sudesh, what are like your future trends? Like what trends will shape the future of cloud optimization as per you?
I think the one point which is I'm interested, as you mentioned as well, you have a hybrid, multiple clouds. Now, which cloud, which service is good? I think that's where we have a single platform with the AI enabled. And like in cloud, you have a spot availability as well. So if you need to run any workload, so you can compare with respect to the different hyperscaler, which is, the financial terms, which is better. And that's where I guess AI will play a role from the backside. But as I said, generative AI definitely is going to help. I see in enterprise reporting, analytics, it's a lot of data. But now we are leaders are looking the trend themselves or some forecasting. But I guess going forward, it would be automatically alerts would be coming. And that's the way I see in the next 2-3 years. So you will have a smart system.
If I have to add, and taking his example again, most of the systems are getting IoT enabled. So you would have some sensors. That means the data that is going to getting generated is going to be huge. So some of the use cases we believe are going to be based on what you can do with data closer to the source of the data rather than bringing it to cloud. Because cloud, you have a problem, you have to bring it to a central site.
Yeah.
And that costs you. Okay. So a lot of people will have the cloud technology deployed near the data source, and that's what is people are calling as edge.
Yeah.
So another area is going to be cloud to edge continuum, and how you have AI enabled things. I think those are things which are going to be
Absolutely.
the future areas. In
Yeah,
this
you know,
area.
I used to say this for AI. AI is not the future, it's the present.
Yeah.
But same goes for cloud optimization. Same goes for cloud, you know, it's not the future, it's the present.
That's correct.
Well, gentlemen, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today for this insightful conversation. We learned a lot, definitely.
It was pleasure being part of this discussion.
Thank you very much. Thanks for
Thank
inviting
you.
me.
Thank you, our audiences. Stay tuned for more such videos only at Tata Communications presents ET Studios, The Curious Case of Cloud in association with ETCIO.